Good evening. I'm Charles Gross. Welcome to Two on the Aisle.
And I'm Leslie Hoban Blake. Nice to be back.
Good to have you. We have a lot of shows to talk about tonight, so we're going to get right to it. The Addams Family. Yes, yes.
We should be doing this.
All right. Well, the interesting thing is in the overture, the first bar of music you hear, da-da-da-dum, they cannot do the Addams Family without that theme. I think when they wanted to do the movie, the first Addams Family, they didn't want to use it, and then they realized you just have to stick it in somewhere, because the interesting thing is the television show has become as much a defining part of the Addams Family as the Charles Addams cartoons.
Absolutely.
And in fact, the characters didn't have names and the relationships really weren't known until the TV show. And I have to say that Charles Addams himself did say, all right, you know, these are their names, these are the relationships, etc. So we know who they are, and they're, I think, an excellent subject for a Broadway musical.
Oh, I think so too. I think perhaps better in the concept than in the actual program, but you know, that's another story. It is funny though, when you do this, and you have a very strong snap, I must say, when you do that, it almost tells you immediately what's wrong with the show. And there's a lot right with it. I know it's gotten some not very good reviews, but it's got a tremendous cast. It's got some wonderful, wonderful people. And I mean, how can you not want to go see a show that has Nathan Lane and Bebe Neuwirth in it?
Well, I'll tell you why not.
Okay.
and there is a lot to recommend in this show. But here's something that I noticed. When they started doing da-da-da-dum, the whole audience was either snapping or clapping along. But that's as involved as they got.
Well, I don't know. We probably saw the same.
Throughout that whole show.
Yeah.
And there's this one number, Bebe Neuwirth. It's a really good number. Death is just around the corner. Very Addams-like, and Bebe Neuwirth as Morticia pulls it over beautifully. But at one point she says, death is just around the coroner. Then she turns to the audience, coroner, get it? And everyone is kind of, you know, you'd think they would at least give an "oh," you know, or something like that. Well, and they don't.
Okay, but the day I was there, the afternoon that I was there, and I was there very early, as you were, I'm sure, in the run.
Yes.
So we had a lot of out-of-towners at the, and it was well sold out beforehand. So
the show is a hit.
The show is a hit on paper.
Yes,
it was not a critical
and at the
hit.
box office.
And at the box office,
definitely
but not a critical hit. And the people who come to see it love it before it starts. That's the whole thing. They're loving the show because they love the Addams Family from the television and from the reruns, so that little kids still know who all of these characters are.
And from the cartoons, quite a few. Well, at least the New Yorkers who are coming to see it. There's actually an exhibit of the cartoons
at the Museum of the City of New York. Yeah.
But here's the problem with this show, and it has a lot going for it, and I'll tell you what that is shortly. But here's the problem: the Addams Family values. They don't know. They really didn't get the Addams Family down right, and it's hard to get down right because one of the cartoons, and in fact one of the lines is the show. Gomez says to Morticia, "Are you unhappy, darling?" And she says, "Yes, completely." But you can see she's actually very content.
Well, that cartoon happens to be in the in the program.
But here's the plot: their daughter Wednesday is in love with a boy from a normal family, and she wants. The families are meeting, and she wants her family to be normal for just one night. Now, if that sounds familiar to you, it's because that's pretty much the plot of La Cage, which is also playing on Broadway this season.
Or The Munsters.
Well, I don't think there's been a musical of The Munsters yet, and I don't think there ever will be, quite frankly. So but here's the problem. The boy's family turns out to be even stranger than the Adamses.
Underneath.
Plus, yes, underneath, and well, it comes out. There's this one wonderful scene where they're playing this game, and Gomez, the wife of the boyfriend, is going off on this tangent, and Gomez says, "Wow, that's dark even for us," and that tells you something. But also the plot of the show. A lot of it has Morticia worried about getting old. Now here's a woman
who's 300 years old.
Well, we don't know how old Morticia actually is, but. She sings she sings a song called "Death is Just Around the Corner," and that makes her happy. And she's having a midlife crisis. It's just not very Addams-like. for her to do that. She's getting old, she's getting ugly. For an Addams baby, that's supposed to be a good thing.
Well, except that she's not ugly. She never was ugly.
No, she never
was always
was.
The best looking of the bunch.
that is true.
Not
but
saying much,
it doesn't. But it doesn't hold up. It's not. We're not getting the Addams Family. That's the problem. There's one very nice song that Nathan Lane sings. Is Gomez. Let's not talk about anything else but love. Nice number. Nathan Lane puts it over well. But it's not very Addams-like.
Well, but here's something that you're not talking about. And Nathan is a perfect Gomez. I wouldn't necessarily have thought it before seeing him do it. He is a perfect Gomez, and he never breaks character, which I might have thought he would have done, because he's done it in other shows. When he did A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Forum.
Well, that's a show that almost begs you to break
only
character,
because
especially if you're in the leading role, which he was.
Right. But he's and these people are going on in the face of not great reviews, even though they have great audiences.
Yes. And I think most actors would rather have great audiences than great reviews.
Well, probably, and that's what you have to face every day. But the thing of it is, to me, and what was so hard for me to take was the two stars and the other actors as well. Kevin Chamberlain plays a wonderful Uncle Fester.
Yes, he finally comes out of his shell. He's always been so nebbishy on stage, and anything, even as Horton the Elephant.
He's not exactly not nebbishy here. He's just a different kind of nebbishy.
No, I don't consider Fester. No, he pulls out all the stops on this role. He's not. Fester is not nebbishy. Fester is kind of outgoing, and he's
for a guy who looks like that. Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
But the point, and Jackie Hoffman is kind of wasted here, because Jackie, who stole Hairspray anytime she was on stage, has only one character to play, and it's a very
Well, she plays the mother, and again, the mother is upset that she's old. All right, yes. Do people get upset when they're old? Yes, but that just doesn't seem very Addams Family-like.
Every member of our clan, living, dead, and undecided. And let us celebrate what it is to be an Addams.
When you're an Addams, right? When you're a very special to tonight, outfit the Addams. When you're an Addams, one bite, you're obligated to the clan. It's family first and family last, and family by and by. When you're an Addams, the standard answers don't apply. When you're an Addams, you do what Addams do, or die.
Death is just around the corner, waiting high upon the hill. Someone buried in an avalanche. That's the kind of gig I can really dig. Marriage often disappoints you. Not each husband is a gem. So I'll mourn knowing death is just around the corner, coming after them.
So many memories. Wednesday, eating her first worm. Wednesday, sealing up her baby brother in the wall. Wednesday, setting fire to the Jehovah's Witness.
Now, I actually listened to the album of the show, and I was actually very surprised, because there are a lot of good songs in this show. Some not so good. But plenty very good, and I agree with you. I like Nathan Lane, I like Bebe Neuwirth, but the book of this show is just so horrible.
This is what I wanted to say, is there's nothing for them to do.
Yeah.
To have Bebe
Marshall
Neuwirth,
Brickman and Rick Elise.
Yeah, Rick Elise is responsible for the Jersey Boys, so, well, Marshall Brickman and...
He did a much better job with that.
Well, they both did, but they were real people that they were doing. Perhaps that has something to do with it. But the only thing I wanted to make sure I get to say is that there's nothing for someone with the ability of Bebe Neuwirth to do.
Except for that wonderful number.
But she's a dancer. And she even has a wonderful slit in her skirt, and she doesn't dance. She
there's a little dancing.
But she barely kicks up that beautiful boot. She barely kicks up one of those. So my feeling was that the actors are not well served by the script, which is in essence what you're saying as well.
Yes.
However, I think ultimately we find that a show like this is what they call critic-proof. People are going to come, they're going to come and they're going to love it, and they're not going to care what anybody says, because they're going to like it. And people are bringing their children, and they're paying a top ticket price to bring
Andrew
little
Lippa
kids.
did the music, by the way.
Yes.
My feeling on this is, what I'm hoping is that someday someone will take this show and retool it.
But that's
and
already
give
happened.
And give it a story. Well, no, it's not. They're not going to.
Jerry
close.
Zaks retooled it. I mean,
But it
I
doesn't need a
forgot that.
director. It needs a book.
Oh, I
It
see. Well,
needs a
yes.
story. I have no problems with the direction. I have no problems with the performances. I have a lot of problems with this story. And I have a lot of problems with a second family that's even stranger than the Adamses. The whole point is that this is the Addams family. They're strange, at least by our standards. To them, they're perfectly normal.
Would you like to move on to another show that's not quite so?
I will momentarily. Just in conclusion,
Yeah, I'm sorry.
it's, great. I think this is a good cast and a score that I found surprisingly good. I didn't realize how good it was when I saw it on stage, but subsequently listening to it, I was actually fairly impressed. But that is just so bogged down by such a horrible story and such a disastrous book that the good stuff really doesn't get to shine through.
Well, I still walked out, doing this and not remembering any of the music that I heard, but okay.
Well, I think if you walk into an Addams Family musical and all you remember is...
that's
and there's a